Hello, and this is Mike Garner from MrMikeGarner.com coming to you with another chapter from this wonderful book called Find and Use Your Inner Power by Emmett Fox. I found this in an old bookstore in Old Colwyn, North Wales in the UK, and it changed my life. Written in 1937, it talks with expressions that are as old as the book, clearly. But at the end of each chapter and each session, as I'm presenting it on video, I'm bringing it up to date, and interestingly enough, this particular chapter is called Stand By for Quarantine. Stand By for Quarantine. The next chapter, as you can see, is called The Will of God. At the moment, reading this, we're in the middle of a pandemic where a lot of people are in lockdown, quarantine. So this is not particularly talking about that sort of quarantine, but he draws reference to it. So listen to this. It's quite short, this, but it's very, very powerful. When you are praying or treating about a particular thing, that's interesting, that use of that word. Obviously that's an expression from 1937, treating about something. You should handle it mentally very carefully indeed. The ideal way is not to think about it at all, except when you are actually praying about it. To think about it in between, especially to talk to another person about it, is exceedingly likely to invite failure. When a new problem presents itself to you, you should immediately know the truth about it, and then decline to consider it except in the light of truth. I call this putting the subject into quarantine. And whenever I have been able to quarantine a problem of my own, I have always demonstrated very easily and very well. Now there's another word there, demonstrated. If you look at the other chapters, the other sessions that I've put onto video, he uses that word. Demonstrated means played out or acted upon it. Even an old, long-standing problem can be put in quarantine today. If you mean business and will resolutely break the habit of constantly thinking over that problem, putting it into quarantine is your best advice. Everybody knows that a photographer must not expose unfixed film to daylight if he wants to get a result. Now this obviously was in the days when you used to have photographic film and not digital, and it came as like a cellophane, a celluloid, and it was on a reel, and you used to have to put it into the camera body in the dark, take it out in the dark. You couldn't expose it to the sunlight. It was only exposed to the sunlight when you actually took a snapshot. And it says, everybody also knows how careful a chemist is to isolate, inverted commas, quarantine his materials in the laboratory, since the slightest contamination of one chemical by another will probably ruin an experiment. What many truth students do not seem to understand is that mental operations have to be just as carefully safeguarded if demonstrations are to be made. Whenever you think about any subject, you are treating it with your thoughts, either for good or evil. That's the end. So some words there that we don't use it anymore in 2020, probably not for a long time in this century, because it's written in 1937. I've noticed that he makes the expression holding it up to the truth and the light of truth, and that means putting it to God or putting it to a higher wisdom, to a higher intelligence, to your higher self, if you want to put it in that way. But what he's basically saying is that if you've got a problem, you should quarantine it. Don't talk about it, don't express it. Talk to God about it. Talk to your higher self about it. And don't consider it again. Just have that conversation and then let it go, basically. It never says let it go, but what it's saying is don't demonstrate about it. Treat it to the light. In other words, offer it up to God or a higher power, and then trust that that's the way to go. Keep it isolated from any other part of your life. Don't bring it into any part of your life. Don't introduce it to any other person in your life. Just keep it to yourself, between you and God, and then trust that offering it up to God, in other words, offering it up to the light, shining a light on it, a higher power, a higher intelligence, you've done everything that you can. And from my point of view, I would call that quantum ordering. You send a problem out into the universe, you radiate it, and you ask the universe, or God, G-O-D, God, G-O-D, the grand organizing designer, to take that problem from you, to sort it out, to manifest your best outcome. Because the universe knows what's best for you. Well, quite often we want to control outcomes, but we've got to stop trying to control outcomes. We should trust and then allow. And when we trust and allow, better things often happen than what we plan for ourselves, when we relinquish the need to control. But he's actually saying, just let it go, talk to God, hold it up to the light, do that one time, and then never talk about it again. Quarantine it, in other words, partition it in the hard drive of your mind, that you've done that, you've dealt with it, and now seal it. And although again it doesn't say this, but presumably holding it up to the light is, if you like, the cause and the effect. You'll experience a better outcome once you've held it up to the light. And between the cause, which is the conversation with God, and the effect, which is the best outcome for you that the universe can give back to you, the manifestation, you quarantine it. You just don't discuss it with yourself, you don't offer it to God again, you don't think about it, you don't talk about it, you don't gossip about it, you don't find any more information about it, just let it go. I've read this a long time ago and I'd actually forgotten this chapter. At the moment, with what's going on in the world, we all want to know, don't we? We want to know this, know that, we want answers. There's uncertainty. A lot of people will be praying, but they're probably praying, please, 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 and then they're back on their knees again, please, 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 and asking. They've got this list of wants and needs. This is basically saying, ask once, hold it up to the light, trust God, quarantine it then, seal it, job done, wait and see. Something that I'm going to start to do. I'm going to work with this. I'm never saying that I'm right. I'm not saying that this book is right. There's lots of wisdom in this book and there's far more to come, so keep checking back. And I just recommend that you consider what I offer, what this book offers, what Emmett Fox is offering, and just experiment with it. And just let me know if you want in the comments box below. Wherever you view this presentation, you can contact me. All my contact details are available on the page where you view this presentation, or you can email me at mike@mrmikegarner.com, or just Google me, Mr. Mike Garner. Plenty of ways you can let me know how well you're doing, or otherwise. And I'd really love to know from this book what you endorse, what you agree with, what you don't agree with. Be constructive, let me know. I love conversation. And what's working for you. Because it's only when we share, because we care, that we'll evolve and move forward with this ancient wisdom brought bang up to date in 2020 when the world is changing. We need to get as much information as we can, and we need to collect the information and put it out there so that we can all benefit. Use your mind, be powerful. God bless.